The more you talk about what you're doing, the less energy you have to actually do it. Let me ask you something. Why do you feel the urge to tell everyone what you're planning? Every goal, every heartbreak, every whisper of change, it's out there, in the open. But for what? Approval, validation, reassurance that your pain, your plans, or your potential means something. Modern culture celebrates vulnerability, transparency, and the modern disease of constant expression. We live in a world obsessed with telling. Status updates, Instagram stories, tweets about our struggles, YouTube vlogs chronicling the real you. We've mistaken expression for action. We think talking about the mountain is the same as climbing it. The problem: you dilute your power when you distribute your energy into the minds of others. You give away sacred parts of yourself for likes, comments, and temporary recognition. And in doing so, you weaken the very fire that's meant to burn quietly and relentlessly within you. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." But improvement, real internal transformation, requires silence, solitude, not storytelling, not attention-seeking. The psychology behind Let's zoom in for a moment. When you tell someone your goals, your brain often tricks you into feeling like you've already accomplished something. Neuroscience calls this social reality. When you say, "I'm writing a book," or "I'm quitting my job to follow my dream," you receive a burst of dopamine, a reward. Not for completing the action, but for the applause you imagine. But Stoicism isn't about imagined victories. It's about enduring struggle without applause, winning without witnesses. You know what's stronger than being understood? Being unshakable. Secrecy is strength. In Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, there's a consistent theme. Do what is right, not what gets attention. He never wrote those entries for public view. They were reminders to himself, private blueprints for living rightly. Yet we, modern seekers of wisdom, broadcast our half-finished thoughts to strangers. We hope someone will say, "Wow, you're amazing." But that's not strength. That's noise. Real progress is quiet. It doesn't boast. It doesn't tweet. It shows itself only in the result. The Stoic lives like a sculptor. He doesn't speak of his plans. He sharpens his chisel in silence, carves every hour with discipline, and lets the finished statue do the talking. The illusion of transparency. But I'm just being real. You've heard this before. Maybe even said it yourself. Transparency is the modern virtue, the worship of openness. But here's the danger. In trying to be real, we become performative. We're no longer living life. We're scripting our image, creating a highlight reel of pain, plans, and projections. Seneca wrote, "Withdraw into yourself, as far as you can." Why? Because your soul is not a public square. It's a temple, sacred, hidden, not for public commentary. The 3 things you should never broadcast. Let's get practical. Here are 3 categories. The Stoics would caution you never to 1. Your future plans. Talking about your dreams before acting on them invites ego to the table. Silence protects you from premature praise and premature disappointment. 2. Your deepest pain. Pain deserves healing, not performance. Sharing your wounds too early turns them into theater. Heal first. Speak later. 3. Your spiritual growth. When you tell everyone how you've changed, you risk turning growth into identity. The Stoic silently becomes. He doesn't proclaim it, the counter-argument, but I need to talk to heal. This is where balance matters. Yes, confession has power, therapy is real, but the Stoic difference is this. You speak to heal, not to be heard, not to be admired, not to build an audience. When your talking becomes performance instead of process, you lose yourself. Your life is not a podcast. Don't know the world, your updates. You don't need to explain every move. Every time you tell someone about your transformation before it's complete, you expose it to misunderstanding, doubt, envy, jealousy. The Stoic doesn't hide out of fear. He protects his internal world like a warrior guards a fortress. Not everything sacred should be seen. The path ahead in the next part of this journey, we'll look at how to build true inner stillness. Not just silence in your mouth, but silence in your mind. We'll explore the paradox, how to be deeply connected to others without constantly revealing yourself, how to live in a noisy world without becoming part of its noise. But for now, reflect. What are you telling the world that should have remained between you and God, between you and your inner fire? The Stoic doesn't hide out of shame. He hides in order to build strength. Don't explain your philosophy. embody it. Epictetus: in a world where noise is celebrated, quiet discipline is rebellion. You don't need to shout to be strong. You don't need an audience to make your next move. In fact, the loudest people are often the weakest, the most talkative, the most scattered. The modern addiction to validation. We live in an age where, if it isn't posted, it didn't happen. If you didn't share your progress online, it somehow feels less real. But that's a lie sold by the insecure. The Stoic, by contrast, is content to do the work unseen. He wakes before dawn, not to brag, but because it's the right thing to do. He practices restraint, not for applause, but because peace demands it. He grows internally, not to gain followers, but because his soul is not for sale. There is a power in not being seen, in building silently, in showing the world not what you're working on, but what you've become. The ancient blueprint. Marcus Aurelius' hidden practice. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth at the time, wrote every night in a private journal. Not a blog, not a speech, not a self-help book, just a raw, brutally honest self-dialogue about virtue, death, discipline, fear, and focus. He didn't post about his routines. He didn't show off his wisdom. He hid his process because the process wasn't about attention. It was about alignment. Only centuries later did we find his words. We now call them meditations. Think about that. The greatest Stoic book in history was never meant to be read. That's the level of integrity we're talking about. Discipline is a private affair. You will never master yourself if you're always explaining yourself. Why? Because every time you explain your process, you give your mind the illusion that you've arrived. You take a detour from the path just to wave at others watching you. And that wave, that brief dopamine hit of being acknowledged, steals from your momentum. The Stoic disciplines himself privately because discipline is not a performance. It's a vow, a sacred contract between you and your conscience, the hidden furnace where true strength is forged. Imagine this. A blacksmith doesn't announce every swing of his hammer. He doesn't invite tourists to watch the blade take form. He simply works in the heat, in the sweat, in the dark, until the sword is ready. You are the blacksmith, and your mind, your habits, your character, that's the blade. No one needs to see you forge it. Let them see the result when it's sharp enough to cut through the noise of the world. The Stoic law of conservation. Energy must be preserved. One of the most important Stoic insights is this. Energy is sacred. Every word you say, every emotion you express, every distraction you entertain, all of it costs energy. So when you talk about your goals instead of pursuing them, you're leaking fuel. When you confess your struggles to strangers instead of confronting them inwardly, you're diffusing power. Epictetus would ask, is this within your control? And if not, why are you giving it your voice, your time, your soul? The Stoic conserves energy not to be cold, but to be efficient, focused, unshakable. Detachment is not isolation. It's mastery. Now, let me be clear. The Stoic doesn't isolate out of fear. He withdraws from noise to hear the deeper voice within. You can still love. You can still build relationships. You can still express gratitude, compassion, truth, but you do it from a rooted place. You share your presence, not your every thought. You offer your peace, not your endless updates, and that makes you powerful. Practice. Building a fortress of silence. Went to apply this today. Start with this habit. Speak only when your words improve the silence. And go further. Delete the drafts of tweet you wrote about your goals. Keep your spiritual practices private for the next 90 days. Stop explaining your boundaries. Live them. Don't announce your changes. Just become the change. As Seneca said. Let your works speak for you, and they will. Loudly. Without words. In the quiet, you will remember who you are. A noise distracts. Silence refines. When you stop narrating your life, you start living it. When you stop seeking external confirmation, you start building internal certainty. And when you stop telling everyone what you're doing, you'll find something surprising. You're finally doing it. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca, there's a reason why warriors throughout history were trained to speak less. Not because they were uneducated, but because they understood one powerful law. The more you say, the more you give away. In Stoicism, silence is not weakness. It is a weapon, a sharpened edge that cuts through illusions, manipulations, and the emotional chaos of others. When you learn to withhold your reactions, you become untouchable. And when you detach your identity from how others see you, you are finally free. The addiction to being understood. Let's begin with a hard truth. Most people don't want to be happy. They want to be understood. They want to feel heard. They want to explain their perspective. They want to make sure others know how hard their life is, how unique their struggle is, how valid their pain is. But the Stoic knows, you don't need to be understood to be at peace. That's an ego trap. If you're always trying to explain yourself, you've already lost control. True power lies in you know who you are. You know what you stand for. Whether the crowd claps or boos, your path doesn't change. The echo chamber of opinions, modern life, is a constant referendum. People vote on your worth every day with likes, comments, and gossip. One mistake, they cancel you. One opinion, they label you. It's exhausting. And worse, it's unnecessary. Epictetus taught, if someone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses. Simply answer, he was unaware of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these. This is the Stoic sort of silence. It slices through insult without even swinging. You win the war by refusing to fight, because when you react, they own you. But when you remain still, you rise above. Emotional detachment does not equal coldness. Let's clarify a common misunderstanding. Stoic detachment does not mean apathy. It does not mean that you stop caring. It means you care correctly. You stop giving your energy to what you can't control. You stop tying your self-worth to what others think. You stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even offer you a bandage. You can love someone and still let go. You can forgive and still move on. You can care without being consumed. This is the heart of Stoic love. It is fierce, but free. Present, but not possessive. The freedom of being misunderstood. One of the greatest superpowers you can develop is the ability to let people misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them assume. Let them invent stories about who you are and what you do. The Stoic doesn't chase rumors. He watches them burn out on their own. Remember, you are not here to perform clarity for others. You are here to live in clarity within yourself. Once you stop defending your name, you start building your character. And character will outlive reputation, every time. The strength of withheld response. Think about this. Every reaction is a transaction. When you respond with anger, you just paid them with your peace. When you respond to gossip, you just gave their words credibility. When you argue online, you just gave strangers access to your mind. Seneca warned us about this long ago. He who is everywhere is nowhere. The same is true emotionally. If you respond to every slight, defend every opinion, prove every point, you scatter your soul. But when you practice strategic silence, you gather your strength. You create a sanctuary of sovereignty, a space where no one gets in unless you let them. Practice the rule of 3 breaths. Here's a simple Stoic technique to sharpen your detachment before responding to anything that triggers you. An insult, a temptation. Pause and take 3 slow breaths. Ask yourself, is this within my control? Will this matter in 1 year? Would silence say more than words ever could? If the answer to that last one is yes, don't respond. Let the silence speak for you. Strength is quiet in every generation. True warriors have something in common. They say little, they do much. They keep their intentions private and their emotions sacred. This is the Stoic path. Not to be void of feeling, but to be full of choice. Not to be heartless, but to be wise in where you place your heart. Not to be silent out of fear, but out of unshakable clarity. Your silence is your sword. Wield it well. Withdraw into yourself as far as you can. Associate with those who will make you a better man. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Marcus Aurelius. Not everything in your life is meant for the public. Not every thought is meant to be voiced. Not every goal is meant to be shared. In a time when people overshare everything, what you eat, who you date, where you're going, what you're working on, the Stoic walks a different path. He guards his soul with secrecy, not out of fear, not because he's hiding shame, but because he understands something the modern world has forgotten. What is sacred should remain private. The world doesn't deserve all of you. Let's get something straight. The world has become a place where everyone feels entitled to your story, your trauma, your struggle, your behind-the-scenes breakdowns. But here's the truth. They haven't earned it. Your transformation is not public property. Your inner battles are not for gossip. Your dreams are not for debate. The Stoic doesn't share his path with people who haven't walked a single step beside him. Because to reveal sacred things to profane people is spiritual betrayal. Power grows in the dark. Seeds grow in darkness before they ever touch the light. So do your dreams. So do your plans. So does your character. You don't put a newborn into the spotlight. It's too fragile. You protect it. You nourish it. You wait until it's strong enough to face the world. The Stoic does the same with his inner life. He does not seek validation before the vision is fulfilled. He lets time be the proof. Because when your soul is still under construction, the last thing you need is an audience throwing rocks. What you hide, you strengthen. Most people think hiding something means you're ashamed of it. But Stoicism teaches that what you conceal with wisdom becomes more powerful. If everyone knows your weaknesses, they can exploit them. If everyone knows your plans, they can sabotage them. If everyone knows your emotions, they can manipulate you. But when you hold certain truths in silence, they harden into strength. They become internal armor, a deep well that no one else can poison. The discipline of mystery. Mystery is not manipulation. It's discipline. The Stoic does not play mind games. He plays long games. He understands that revealing too much, even to well-meaning people, can delay growth. So he cultivates an intentional mystery. Not everyone knows what he's working on. Not everyone knows what he's thinking. Not everyone knows what he's feeling. Because mystery protects momentum. The modern lie. Be transparent about everything. There is a dangerous narrative today. Be vulnerable. Be transparent. Tell your truth to the world. While this sounds noble, it is often foolish. Because the world isn't always kind. And not everyone listening is rooting for you. Stoics don't lie, but they don't advertise their battles either. Seneca put it this way: nothing, to my way of thinking, is better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. He knew that some truths are meant to be held, not shared. What happens when you keep secrets, when you practice sacred secrecy? 3 things begin to change. You regain your center. You no longer spin your identity around what others think. You become anchored in your own knowing. You gain control over your energy. You stop bleeding power through useless conversations and empty confessions. You become unpredictable. And that makes you powerful, because no one can weaponize what they don't know. The difference between silence and suppression. Let's make a critical distinction. Keeping secrets is not the same as suppressing pain. Suppression is denial. It's toxic silence. It leads to internal breakdown. But Stoic secrecy is conscious, strategic, powerful. You don't hide to avoid. You hide to protect. You hide to preserve the sacred until it's strong enough to reveal. Practice. The rule of inner sanctuary. Here's your practice for this principle. Create a list of 3 to 5 things in your life that are just for you. A habit, a spiritual practice, a goal, a healing journey, a source of joy. Do not post about it. Do not tell anyone about it. Guard it, nourish it, let it grow in silence, because one day they will see the results, and they won't know how you did it. That is the Stoic way. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be, but one. Marcus Aurelius. We live in an age where announcements have replaced action. People don't build anymore. They broadcast their intention to build. They don't change. They just say they will. But here's what the Stoic knows with brutal clarity. Talking isn't doing, and talking too much about doing often stops you from actually doing. It's a dangerous illusion to speak as if the mission is already complete, because the brain foolishly rewards words with the same chemical satisfaction as work. The brain's lie. Talking feels like progress. Let's unpack this. Studies in psychology show that when you announce a goal publicly, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical. It's the same reward you'd get from actually finishing the goal. In short, you get the high of progress without the substance. This is why the Stoic remains silent, because he understands this core truth. Every word you speak about your dream steals energy from the doing. The more you talk, the less pressure you feel to act. And without pressure, there is no urgency. Without urgency, there is no execution. The ego loves to speak. First, when you speak too soon, you're not leading with discipline. You're leading with ego. The ego wants to be seen, wants credit before the result, wants praise for intentions, not outcomes. The Stoic crushes the ego at the root. He lets his work speak for itself. He doesn't post a status. He lays a brick, then another, until there is a wall. And when people finally notice, it's not because he begged for attention, it's because the work was undeniable. Why premature sharing weakens execution? Think of a fire. It starts as a spark. Delicate, small, easily extinguished. That's your idea. That's your goal. Now imagine telling the world about it too soon. Their opinions are wind. Some cheer you on. Some criticize, but all of it, good or bad, can blow out the flame. Because now, instead of focusing on building, you're wondering, what do they think? Do they like it? What if I fail in front of them? You've leaked mental bandwidth. You've given away control of your own fire. The Stoic rule: let results speak. The Stoic is not interested in promises. He measures progress in results, not declarations. Seneca said it plainly: it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Apply that here. It is not the man who does little, but the man who talks much and does little, that is weak. The Stoic doesn't say, I will become disciplined. He simply becomes disciplined. One small choice at a time, in silence, when no one is watching. The discipline of keeping it quiet. Here's the principle: don't announce the climb. Appear at the summit. This requires immense because, in a world addicted to attention, silence is painful. But that pain becomes your edge. It becomes your mental weightlifting. If you can hold your tongue now, you sharpen your sword for later. The longer you stay quiet, the stronger the reveal becomes. But what about accountability? Someone might say, but if I tell others, I'll be held accountable. False. Studies show that public declarations actually reduce follow-through. Why? Because the more people you tell, the more satisfied your brain feels, as if you've already succeeded. You've been seen doing the work, even if you haven't started. The Stoic finds accountability not in public eyes, but in self-respect, in tracking the work when no one claps. The wisdom of the samurai: move in silence. The ancient samurai had a saying: let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Sun Tzu. This is Stoic wisdom in armor. You don't broadcast your strategy. You train. You sharpen. You refine. And when the time comes, you strike. Clean. Precise. With no warning. You don't need to be loud to be legendary. Look at the greatest Stoic minds. Marcus Aurelius didn't talk about leading. He led Rome through plague and chaos. Epictetus didn't brag about escaping slavery. He became one of the most powerful teachers of inner freedom. Seneca didn't tweet philosophy. He bled it into every page with calm clarity. The truly great ones don't perform. They embody. Practice the quiet mission. Protocol. Here's how to apply this. Pick one goal, something meaningful but currently private. Tell no one. Not your friends. Not social media. Not even your journal. Keep it sacred. Work silently for 30 days. Track your actions, not your announcements. Focus on consistency, not praise. Reveal only the result. When it's done, when it's real, then you decide whether to share, not for validation, but as a gift of inspiration. Closing thought. The Stoic knows the world doesn't need more talkers. It needs more finishers, more builders, more silent warriors who walk the path without applause. So next time you feel the urge to announce your ambition, don't. Just take the next step. In silence. With power, you were never meant to explain your whole life. You were meant to live it. With depth, with courage, and with silence that speaks louder than noise. In a world obsessed with visibility, choose invisibility with intention. Not to hide, but to protect your peace. Not to run, but to move without chains. Let your energy be guarded. Let your plans be sacred. Let your victories echo in silence. Not for applause, but for your own becoming. Because the Stoic doesn't fear being misunderstood. He only fears wasting his soul on ears that never deserve the truth. The more you grow, the less you need to speak. The more you see, the less you need to prove. The more you become, the less you crave recognition. So step away from the urge to step deeper into the art of becoming. No noise, no announcement, just quiet power. And when the world finally turns to look, you won't need to say anything. You will already be undeniable.